In all the world, there's no more astonishing landscape than the Grand Canyon of Arizona. Even when you have seen the immense size and its unbelievable beauty, your mind may reject what you have seen as impossible. There are few, if any, other places on Earth that can match it for sheer grandeur. This is your tour of the Grand Canyon. Millions of people come from around the world to visit this, the most popular of our national parks. They come to see the great depths, as much as a mile, the awesome size, 277 miles long and as much as 18 miles across, and the great beauty of its infinite shapes and colors. They leave overwhelmed and inspired by sights that many fail to fully comprehend. In the year 1540, Spanish conquistadores, led by Hopi Indians, reached the canyon rim. They were the first Europeans to do so. The most renowned explorer was Major John Wesley Powell, famed for his heroic descent of the river by boat in 1869. As we stroll about the rim, gazing down into the depths of the canyon far below, we sometimes forget that its calm and quiet look is owing to the great distance. But all of these terraces, every butte and cliff, all have been carved by erosion, wind and water. And the Colorado River today is never at rest. At its deepest point, in an area known as the Granite Gorge, the canyon digs about a mile into the Earth's crust and 2 billion years into its past. In the black walls of the inner gorge, the ancient granite even now is slowly giving away, grain by tiny grain, to the forces of erosion. There's an infinite variety of form and shapes among the rocks, almost anything that fancy can suggest. This formation is known as Duck on the Rock. In the beginning, a quiet river flowed across a gentle sloping plain. Pressures within the earth gradually tilted the surface, and the river, fed by melting snows and rain, began to flow faster, cutting a deeper course. As the channel grew, its banks collapsed into the rushing water, creating an ever-widening V-shaped channel. Today, the river is still digging deeper and deeper, scraping away at the rocky walls, hollowing out, undermining, always at work. In 1983, this was graphically illustrated when the mighty river, supposedly tamed by man, fed by record winter snows and torrential spring rains, overpowered the great dam system that was designed to calm it, and sent a vast torrent of water rushing through the gorge, destroying wildlife, cutting new channels, wiping out some rapids while creating new ones, undermining its banks, and digging still deeper into its rock gorge. Grand Canyon National Park embraces the most spectacular scenic stretch of the Colorado, which may well be the most scenic long river on Earth. A boat trip down this waterway through raging rapids is an experience never to be forgotten. Another exciting method of viewing the canyon is from the air. There are several scenic airlines that offer trips by helicopter and fixed-wing aircraft. In this way, you will see the canyon as only a comparatively few have done. Far below lies famous Havasu Falls, adjacent to the 518-acre Havasupai Indian Reservation. Our flight over the canyon ends as we approach the canyon rim and Grand Canyon Village. The village stretches for about a mile and a half through the pine forests along the south rim. Here you will find the world-famous El Tovar Hotel. Other tourist accommodations, including Bright Angel Lodge, are nearby, surrounded by a complex of cottages, shops, and studios. At the visitor center, you'll find extensive displays on the Navajo Indians, while Yavapai Museum exhibits the geology of the park. Hopi House is a replica of the type of terraced stone building built by the Hopi Indians. Handmade pottery, blankets, and exquisite silver jewelry are offered for sale. There are many wonderful views of the canyon from the rim here at the village. Perhaps the most exciting adventure to be found in this great national park is the mule trip down into the canyon. There are 1- and 2-day trips. The longer of these goes the entire 11 miles to Phantom Ranch. You don't need to be a seasoned rider because all the mules are carefully trained, and experienced wranglers will choose a suitable mount for each member of the party. Groups of sightseers gather to see the riders off as they thread their way down Bright Angel Trail. The trail drops down by a series of zigzags or switchbacks, which reduces the steep descent to an easier grade. The animals are good-natured and always sure-footed. It's a long trip down, often hot and dusty. Well before we approach the Colorado River, our party has descended into a desert environment with a climate like northern Mexico. Although hiking on the canyon trails is very popular with the younger and more athletic visitors, it can be very strenuous. Here at the bottom, you can almost feel the mighty forces of erosion at work. The mule train crosses the river over the Kaibab Bridge, which arches from one wall to the other, suspended by sturdy steel cables anchored in the rock. Here in a cool grove of cottonwood trees is our destination, Phantom Ranch, with everything tired riders could wish for. The trip out the next morning covers a different route from the one that we took down, and we will see other parts of the canyon at close range. The mule train climbs up the shorter and steeper Kaibab Trail, a spectacular ascent from river level to Yaqui Point. The last few miles of this trail, which literally climbs up the face of a gigantic cliff, are perhaps the most exciting of the entire mule trip. Looking back over your shoulder down into the incredible depths of the canyon, you'll find it hard to realize that only a few hours earlier, you were relaxing under cool shade trees, in a happy oasis now lost to the view behind the cliffs and terraces shimmering far below. Up here among the pines, we are far removed from that other world along the river. Then, as we move further east, the canyon grows shallower, the river closer, and the landscape less rugged. Near the east entrance is the watchtower. At no other place in the park can you find a more splendid view of the canyon as a geologist sees it. A gigantic gash in a tilted plateau. The park abounds with animals. You'll catch glimpses of them all along the canyon rim. On most summer days, rising currents from within the Great Canyon bring large cloud buildups. And then the excitement of a sudden thunderstorm, a sight that most will not soon forget. But the glory of the summer soon fades into the riotous colors of fall. And then the beautiful vistas of the pure white snow of winter blends with the deep colors and shadows of the Grand Canyon. Even the wildlife appear more graceful with the winter snows. It is late in the afternoon toward the close of the day that the Grand Canyon takes on its most magnificent coloring. The lowering sun lengthens shadows and embellishes the rocks as at no other time of the day. Even the trees along the rim, some gnarled and bent by wind and storm, take on a golden glow. When sundown is still an hour away, parts of the canyon fill with shadow, and night has come to the western slopes of the gorge. And so our day comes to a close. The history of this great canyon stretches from the dim and distant past to this very day. We have had but a glimpse, only a moment, in the eternal story of the Grand Canyon. The trunks of trees that lived millions of years ago, no longer wood. Now they're made of stone. A strange landscape, an oddly eroded desert, painted with all the colors of nature's palette. This place was once a lush forest where carnivorous dinosaurs prowled among tall trees beside broad lakes. This is Petrified Forest National Park in northeastern Arizona. The park is located directly on Interstate 40. The modern highway replaced famous old Route 66, which in turn had followed the tracks of the wagon trains of earlier times. The park contains the world's largest concentration of petrified wood. This is a fallen forest, however, because the trees are no longer standing. Huge logs of stone strewn about in a landscape where nature's colors run riot. This is the land of the petrified forest and the painted desert as it is today. But this is not the landscape in which the trees originally grew. To see that, we have to travel far back into the distant past, to the primeval time long before human beings existed, when the Earth was an entirely different planet. $100 million years ago, before the continents had drifted to their present positions, this place was 1,700 miles closer to the equator. It was a tropical marshy site with dense vegetation and stands of trees 200 feet tall. One fairly small species of meat-eating dinosaur, Coelophysis, lurked behind a tree, eyeing his prey. But how did the trees become petrified? Well, the story's quite complex. As the trees died and fell to the ground, shifting streams covered them with mud. The water carried large amounts of silica dissolved in it, and as it percolated through the logs, the silica gradually formed minute crystals of quartz, silicon dioxide, within the woody tissues. In some cases, the quartz deposits duplicated the original wood cells in perfect detail. In others, the cell walls were dissolved and the silica replaced the wood structure without preserving much detail. Many petrified logs show both types of preservation. In the same way, the bones of animals from the remote past have also been preserved and are found in extensive fossil deposits in the park. In addition, fossilized leaves and other plant parts have been discovered. This is a microscopic view of part of a leaf of a plant from early in the age of the dinosaurs. The preservation is so perfect that separate cells can readily be distinguished. Study of this type of fossil tells us much about ancient climates. This is a microscopic view of a cross-section of fossilized wood from an extinct conifer tree. The cells are arranged in rows, just as they are in modern conifer wood. This type of petrification, where the tiniest details are preserved in stone, is much less common, but often more valuable to scientists than the replacement type, where only the general structure of the organic substance can be observed. Many of the most spectacular scenic sections of the painted desert are part of the park. Just about every color of the rainbow can be found in this unearthly landscape, although in many places the dominant shade is red. The present desert, where vegetation is sparse, contrasts markedly with the luxuriant forests and swamps of primeval times. The Park Service has provided many turnouts and overlooks with parking areas where visitors can stop off the road to view the scenery. Several include interpretive exhibits that help to explain the natural features. The Painted Desert Inn is located at Kachina Point in the northern section of the park. The building is a harmonious combination of Spanish and Indian Pueblo architecture and was originally a small hotel for travelers on old Route 66. It's being converted into a museum. The Petrified Forest area was occupied by a prehistoric Indian people, now called the Anasazi, for a period of more than 10 centuries. Evidence of their presence is found in many forms throughout the park. These are petroglyphs, literally stone writings carved in the rock over 1,000 years ago. The park's largest concentration of petroglyphs is on newspaper rock. The rock is a huge block of sandstone that presents several flat surfaces covered with desert varnish, a natural dark mineral stain. The designs, they can't properly be called writing, were pecked into the varnish with stones, exposing the lighter, unweathered rock underneath. Although scientists have not determined the meaning of the carvings, many of them surely are symbols of important objects or events in the lives of the prehistoric people who created them. There are representations of hand and footprints, drawings apparently of the sun, images of animals and humans. Some figures combine both human and animal features and suggest gods or spirits. This is partially excavated Puerco ruin, an Anasazi pueblo or village that was occupied through most of the 12th century and then again in the 14th. The pueblo probably comprised about 76 rooms and enclosed a large courtyard. Agate House, partially restored, strikes many visitors as an even more unusual Anasazi structure. Instead of the sandstone rocks that were used in the walls at Puerco, this building is made almost exclusively of blocks of petrified wood, originally cemented together with clay. When Agate House was first built, the Anasazi were simply using the most readily available material. But their work shows off the marvelous colors and textures of the petrified wood in a way that appeals to modern eyes. Anasazi pottery has also been found in the park. These are everyday utensils for handling and storing food. Corn was a staple food and was dried and then ground into meal using a sandstone metate. Continuing south from newspaper rock, we come next to the teepees, a term having no connection with the Anasazi, but a good descriptive name for these painted desert formations. In our north to south tour, Blue Mesa gives the first real view of the incredible profusion of petrified logs to be seen in the park. A paved trail leads around the mesa, and a spur trail goes down into Badlands formations of the Painted Desert. These curious objects are called pedestal logs. Each one is actually a section of petrified log on top of a banded column of sandstone and was marooned there by erosion. During the rains of preceding years, the earth washed away from around the log. The soil under it, however, was sheltered from the elements and remains as a ridge or pinnacle capped by the log. The largest number of pedestal logs is found here at Blue Mesa, and also in Jasper Forest, a few miles farther south. With almost every shower, with almost every gust of wind, more grains of soil are taken away. The process of erosion is a story without an end. pedestal logs are among the most interesting examples of the diversity of erosive processes. When the pedestal that has supported the log crumbles at last, the cap log may be dropped in such a way that it shatters. Long logs eventually are broken into shorter sections, short sections into fragments. Even the solid rock of petrified wood crumbles into colorful gravel sooner or later. Erosion may leave a long, petrified log in a genuinely bizarre position. This is Agate Bridge, just south of Blue Mesa. Here, an unbroken log remains supported at each end after erosion has created a gully under its middle part. The log forms a natural stone bridge. In 1917, however, it became clear that Agate Bridge might collapse under its own weight. Erosion, of course, was and still is continuing to widen and deepen the gully. In that year, the bridge was saved from destruction by building a lengthwise concrete support under the span. There are several other bridges in the park. This slender span is in the Black Forest section of the Painted Desert. Keystone Bridge is in the Blue Mesa area. The arch is fractured in such a way that its center section forms a keystone. The log is broken, but it's still a bridge. Farther south at Jasper Forest, the brilliant multicolored cliffs rise above a vast plain strewn with petrified logs. Without question, many of these logs roll down from the top of the mesa or from its eroding face. Those that haven't yet tumbled to the desert floor probably will do so eventually, as successive rains undermine and loosen them. The name Jasper Forest is taken from the type of opaque quartz that forms the largest part of these petrified logs. In color, jasper is usually brick red or brownish red and has been valued for thousands of years as a gemstone. It's mentioned in the Bible. Continuing south, the park road first passes Crystal Forest, where there's another interpretive trail, and then the flat tops. The Long Logs area of Rainbow Forest near the park's southern entrance is a highlight of any visitor's tour. Maybe it's here on the grassy mesa top that an ancient Indian legend about this place might seem quite reasonable. It was said that these prostrate monarchs of the primeval forest were the shattered bones of a fallen giant. No one can doubt that there once were giants here. "90% of the logs that are preserved from those ancient times are from pine-like trees whose relatives still grow in parts of Australia and South America. They bore cones, grew tall and straight, and had relatively few limbs. Some scientists believe these trees originally grew somewhere south and southeast of the park, and after they fell, were washed here by the ancient streams. Occasionally, visitors jump to the conclusion that the petrified trees broke into sections when they fell, but this is not the case. The process of petrification took place long after the trees had fallen. The petrified logs buried underground were fractured much later still, as pressures changed within the shifting earth. After they originally fell, most of the ancient trees were battered about as streams carried them off. Few petrified logs now show petrified bark as clearly as this one does. This section of log presents a relatively rare feature, a perfectly preserved socket where a limb was broken off, long before the trunk became petrified. The sight of a log still partly buried in the earth might prompt the question, how many more logs are hidden underground? Thousands, certainly. With the passage of time, many will be uncovered naturally by erosion, exposed to sunlight again after a darkness that lasted 200 million years. This is Old Faithful log, one of the largest and most spectacular in the entire park. Some of the great trunks here in Rainbow Forest are over 9 feet in diameter at their base. If most of the logs we've seen so far have seemed a bit drab in coloring, this one all by itself might be sufficient reason to name this area Rainbow Forest. But there are dozens of others here equally colorful. In the Rainbow Forest Museum, there are displays of cut and polished petrified wood that are absolutely dazzling in the vividness and variety of colors. Reds, yellows, and browns are caused by iron impurities, black by manganese or carbon, the rarer tints of blue-green by copper. In many log cross-sections, both polished and rough, the tree rings can clearly be seen and counted. In addition to the great treasure house of petrified wood and other plant fossils here, it's been verified just recently that the park is also one of the world's richest sources of animal fossils, especially from the end of what geologists call the Triassic period. Within the past decade alone, the number of important discoveries of 200-million-year-old bones and teeth have increased enormously. The upper reptile is a Desmatosaucus. Its fossils were first discovered in the park in 1982. The animal at the bottom is a 40-foot-long phytosaur, which looks something like a modern crocodile, but is not its ancestor. A phytosaur skull is displayed in the Rainbow Forest Museum. This skull is of a giant metoposaur, one of the largest amphibians that ever lived. Many fossils of these creatures, too, have been discovered recently. Museum displays include bones, shells, and teeth, as well as fossilized plant spores and leaves. A good representation of the park's geological treasures is exhibited, and countless others are undergoing scientific study. In addition, the museum has a fine exhibit of Anasazi pottery. Like the primeval life forms that were here millions of years before them, the Anasazi, too, are gone. The Petrified Forest, the Painted Desert, and the Grand Canyon. Visitors who come to see these astonishing landscapes and the marvels they contain have an opportunity to step far back in time, to see our Earth in new ways, perhaps to glimpse the wondrous continuity of life and of the Earth itself.